High Commander Thassara blazed with furious red energy as she watched another of her crystal ships crumble. Under human kinetic fire, the Vextai had conquered 100 worlds with their superior energy manipulation technology. No species had ever resisted them with such primitive weapons. Sub-Commander Velthar, adapt our shields immediately. She commanded. These matter-based projectiles must not be allowed to penetrate our energy fields. Velthar's crystal form pulsed frantically as he tried to modify their defensive systems. High Commander, our shields are designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks. We have no experience with solid matter traveling at such velocities. Then learn quickly, or we will all become space dust. The Vextai fleet began restructuring their energy shields, trying to create barriers that could stop physical objects. But each time they adapted their defenses, the humans changed their attack patterns. Captain Jihun Kang's mining ships were now firing missiles that split into smaller projectiles just before impact. When the Vextai shield stopped those, the humans switched to weapons that fired streams of liquid metal that hardened on contact. Engineering Officer Yun Han, Captain Jihun called out. What's our ammunition status? We're building new rounds faster than we can fire them, Captain, Yun replied with excitement. The fabricators are creating weapon types the aliens have never seen. Each shot is different from the last. This was the genius of humanity's approach. The Vextai were trying to solve the problem like scientists, creating perfect defenses against specific threats, but humans were fighting like engineers, constantly building new solutions faster than anyone could adapt to them. Captain Hyanwu Cha watched from his position aboard the Teguk as the crystal ships struggled with their chaos tactics. Through the neural network he was receiving real-time data from every human ship in the battle. The artificial intelligence was analyzing Vextai responses and suggesting new attack methods every few seconds. Dr. Jimin Lee, Hyanwu said to his chief engineer, the AI is recommending we try adaptive armor now. Are the conversion systems ready? Jimin checked his instruments and smiled. Captain, we're about to show these energy beings something they've never seen before. The Tagu and 5 other heavy cruisers suddenly changed course and headed directly toward the largest Vexta ships. High Commander Thassara watched them approach and prepared to demonstrate the true power of energy-based weapons. All ships focus fire on those approaching vessels, she commanded. Show these primitives what happens when matter meets pure energy. The Vexta unleashed their most powerful weapons, beams of concentrated energy that could melt asteroids, struck the human ships at full force. Thassara expected to see the crude metal vessels vaporize instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships absorbed the energy attacks completely. Their hulls began to glow brighter and brighter as they converted the alien weapons fire into power for their own systems. The more the Vexta shot at them, the stronger the human ships became. Impossible, Thassara pulsed in shock. Purple light, energy cannot be contained by primitive matter. Actually it can, Captain Hyanwu said over the communication channel. When that matter is designed by humans who studied solar energy conversion for 300 years. Dr. Jimin Lee had based the adaptive Armor on technology humans used to harvest energy from their sun. The hull plating could absorb energy, attacks and feed that power directly into the ship's weapons and engines. It was simple physics applied in a way the energy-based Vexta had never considered. All ships returned fire, Hien Wu ordered. The human vessels, now supercharged with Vexta energy, unleashed weapons that were far more powerful than they should have been. But these weren't energy weapons that the aliens could absorb or redirect. They were kinetic cannons powered by the Vexta's own attacks, firing projectiles at speeds that turned simple metal into devastating force. The first Vextai command ship to be hit simply came apart. The crystal structure couldn't handle the impact of matter moving at such incredible velocity, powered by its own energy weapons. The beautiful geometric vessel shattered into a million glowing fragments. Retreat, Thasoric commanded her remaining ships. Fall back and regroup, but Captain Sujin Yang's reconnaissance squadrons were already moving to cut off their escape routes. Her small, fast ships appeared throughout the Vextai formation like ghosts, impossible to target but perfectly positioned to attack. Pilot Di Hien Co. begin the swarm. Attack, Sujin ordered from her ship, and dozens of others. Clouds of small fighters launched into space. To the Vextai they looked like insects, tiny, primitive craft that could barely be worth noticing. This was another fatal mistake. Each fighter was controlled by a human pilot connected to the neural network. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually perfectly coordinated. The Vextai used to fighting logical, predictable enemies couldn't track movements that appeared to be pure chaos but were actually the result of hundreds of human minds thinking together. The fighters swarmed around the crystal ships like angry bees, too small and fast for the large energy weapons to target effectively, but each fighter carried weapons designed specifically for this moment, devices that disrupted energy coherence. At the quantum level, what are those primitive craft doing to our ships? Subcommander Velthar asked in panic as his vessel began to flicker and fade. The answer came from Dr. Junho Park, speaking from his laboratory on Luna. We're introducing quantum discord into your energy matrices. Your ships exist as organized energy patterns. We're just making them a little less organized. The quantum discord weapons were humanity's masterpiece of controlled chaos. They didn't destroy the Vextai ships directly. Instead, they introduced tiny amounts of randomness into the aliens' energy patterns for beings made of pure energy. This was like introducing cancer into a living organism. The crystal ships began to lose their perfect geometric shapes. Their energy fields became unstable. Some ships flickered in and out of existence. Others began to glow with colors that hurt to look at. The Vextai were literally falling apart. At the molecular level, High Commander Felthar's voice was filled with terror. The quantum discord is spreading through our fleet. The energy disruption is contagious. Taisara realized with horror that her advanced energy-based civilization had a fatal weakness. They were all connected through energy fields. What affected one ship could spread to others. The humans had turned the Vextai's greatest strength into their greatest vulnerability. All ships emergency phase shift, Taisara Commanded, break all energy connections. Isolate damaged vessels. But it was too late. The quantum discord had already spread through half her fleet. Crystal ships were losing coherence. Throughout the formation, some were breaking apart completely, others were shifting into energy forms that could no longer maintain consciousness. Commander Yejin Shin watched from her position on the heavy cruiser Soul's Vengeance as the Vextai fleet tried desperately to escape. Through the neural network she could feel the determination of every human in the battle. They had been called primitive. They had been dismissed as barely evolved. Now it was time to send a message. Dr. Junho Park, Yejin said into her communicator, prepare the quantum cascade bomb. This was humanity's final gift to the Vextai Empire, not just a weapon, but a statement. Dr. Junho had designed a device that would create a massive quantum discord field large enough to affect every Vextai ship in the solar system simultaneously. Commander Shin Junho's voice was serious. Deploying this weapon will require a direct approach to their flagship. The ship that carries it won't survive the mission. Yejin looked around at her crew. Every face showed the same expression. Determination mixed with grim satisfaction. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing it was a one-way trip. Understood. Dr. Park, load the device and prepare for final approach. The Soul's Vengeance broke from the human formation and accelerated toward High Commander Thyssera's flagship. The crystal ship was enormous, blazing with desperate energy as it tried to rally the remaining Vextai fleet. Primitive humans, Thysera broadcast on all frequencies. You cannot defeat a civilization that has mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. You're right, Commander Yejin replied calmly. We can't defeat you with advanced technology. That's why we're using primitive methods. The Soul's Vengeance flew directly into the Vextai flagships energy field. The ship's hull began to melt under the intense energy bombardment, but the adaptive armor absorbed enough power to keep the engines running just long enough for humanity. Yejin shouted as she triggered the quantum cascade bomb. The explosion wasn't visible in the normal spectrum of light. Instead, reality itself seemed to ripple outward from the detonation point. Every Vextai ship in the solar system suddenly began to lose coherence. Simultaneously, their perfect energy forms became chaotic storms of uncontrolled force. Within minutes, the entire Vextai armada had either been destroyed or reduced to helpless wrecks drifting through space. The few ships that still maintained enough coherence to move were fleeing the solar system as fast as their damaged energy drives could carry them. High Commander Thysera floated in the center of her crystalline command chamber. Her body was pure energy, shifting between different colors as her emotions changed. Right now she glowed a confident blue. The primitive humans had rejected their generous offer, but this was expected. Analysis of human vessels complete, reported Sub-Commander Velthar, his crystal form pulsing with data streams. Their ships are crude metal constructions, basic fusion drives, primitive plasma weapons, simple deflector shields. Thysera brightened with amusement. As predicted, these creatures still depend on solid matter for everything. Their weapons fire simple energy bursts. Their ships are Heavy and slow, they cannot possibly harm our energy form vessels. On the bioship Evolutionary, High Admiral Zephyros studied the same data. With his collective mind, unlike the Vexti, the Morden had kept physical bodies, but they had perfected them through genetic engineering. Zephyros had 4 arms, enhanced muscles, improved reflexes, and a brain connected directly to his ship's biological systems. Human genetic patterns are chaotic, reported bioanalyst Keith Mira, her voice echoing through the ship's neural network. Random mutations, emotional decision-making, individual personalities that conflict with group efficiency. Their fleet formations are disorganized. Zephyros made a satisfied sound, exactly what we expected. These humans still fight as individuals instead of as one perfect organism. Their ships are not grown from superior biomatter. They cannot adapt during battle like our vessels can. Meanwhile, on the human reconnaissance ship Soul's Pride, Captain Sujin Yang watched both alien fleets through her advanced sensors. Her ship was small and fast, designed for scouting and intelligence gathering. What she was seeing made her both worried and hopeful. Engineering Officer Yun Ha-Nul, are you getting these readings? Su Jin asked. Yun Ha-Nul looked up from her sensor station. Yes, Captain. The crystal ships are definitely energy-based, but look at this. They're not scanning our ships very carefully. They're acting like they already know everything about us. What about the bioships? Those are stranger. They're alive, but they seem to follow very rigid patterns. No variation in their formations. It's like they're all thinking the same thoughts. Sujin nodded slowly. Send all this data to Dr. Min-Soo Choi on Earth and add a personal note. Both alien fleets are making the same mistake. What mistake, Captain? They're not really looking at us. They're looking at what they think we are. Back on Earth, Dr. Min-Soo Choi received Captain Yang's report while standing in the underground research complex beneath Seoul. The facility was buzzing with activity as scientists and engineers worked around the clock. Dr. Yun Jae-song, the head of alien technology research, was examining energy readings from the Vexta ships. Min-Soo, look at this, Yun Jae called out. The crystal ships are powered by pure energy conversion. They turn matter into energy and back again. It's incredible technology, but Min-Soo asked. He knew Yun Jae well enough to hear the uncertainty in her voice. But they seem to think our weapons work the same way theirs do. They're preparing defenses against energy attacks and matter conversion. They're not ready for kinetic weapons or electromagnetic pulses. Across the lab, engineer Team in Ryu was studying the bioship data. Dr. Choi, the organic ships are even more predictable. They adapt to threats, but only threats they recognize. Their biological systems follow genetic programming. They can't handle something completely outside their evolutionary experience. Dr. Min-Soo smiled for the first time since the arrived. So both species are preparing to fight their own technology, not ours. Exactly, Enji said. The Vexed, I think, will use energy weapons because that's all they understand. The Morden think we'll use biotechnology because that's what they've perfected, but we use neither. Tamman added, we use whatever works on the command ship of the Vexed fleet. The Sarah was reviewing battle plans with her officers. The crystal beings had fought many wars across the galaxy, always winning through superior energy manipulation and technological advancement. The humans have approximately 200 ships in their home system, reported tactical coordinator aunts. All are primitive matter-based vessels. Our energy disruptors will phase through their crude shields and destroy their power systems instantly. What about their weapons? Asked Subcommander Velthar. The Sarah pulsed with confident yellow light. Primitive plasma cannons and missile systems. Our energy fields will absorb the plasma. Our ships can phase to avoid the missiles. This battle will be over minutes. The Vexed I had never fought a species that used purely physical weapons. In their experience, all spacefaring civilizations eventually learned to manipulate energy directly. The idea that humans might stick with primitive kinetic weapons and electromagnetic systems never occurred to them. Meanwhile, aboard the Morden flagship, High Admiral Zephyros was making similar assumptions. The bioship's living walls pulsed gently as the collective mind processed tactical data. Human biology is inferior, stated genetic analyst Morthak. Slow reflexes, emotional responses, no collective consciousness. Their ships reflect these flaws, built by individuals, operated by individuals, fighting as individuals. Their biotechnology, asked Zephyros, non-existent. They still use mechanical systems and crude electronics. When our bioweapons infect their ships, they will have no natural defenses. Our adaptive viruses will shut down their systems in seconds. The Morden had conquered dozens of species by overwhelming their biological defenses with superior genetic engineering. They expected human ships to have organic components that could be infected and controlled. The possibility that humans might have developed purely synthetic countermeasures was beyond their consideration. Back on the human research station, orbiting Luna, Dr. Yunji's song was putting the final touches on humanity's response to both threats. Working with her was Dr. Boyoung Chi, specialist in hybrid technologies. The beauty of being called primitive, Yunji said while calibrating a strange-looking device, is that nobody expects you to have advanced solutions to advanced problems. Boyoung nodded while checking her own equipment. The Vexta energy beings can't understand matter-based weapons because they've evolved beyond matter. The Morden biocollective can't understand individual creativity because they've eliminated it from their society. And we, Yunji said with a grin, are too primitive to know that what we're planning is impossible. The device they were working on looked like a cross between a computer, biological sample container, and a small nuclear reactor. It hummed quietly, processing data through quantum calculations, biological neural networks, and good old-fashioned human intuition all at the same time. Dr. Song called out Lieutenant Dong Hyuk-seo from the communication station. Admiral Lee wants to know if the special weapons are ready. Yunji looked at her hybrid creation, then at the screens showing both alien fleets moving into final attack positions. The crystal ships were forming perfect geometric patterns, ready to unleash energy weapons that could destroy planets. The bioships were spreading out like living nets to capture and convert everything in Their path. Both alien species had made the same. Critical error they had looked at. Humanity's technology declared it primitive and prepared to fight the war they expected instead of the war they were going to get. Tell the Admiral, Yunjai said, that the primitive humans are ready to surprise some very advanced aliens. Outside the two most powerful fleets in the galaxy finished their preparations to crush a species they considered barely evolved inside the human ships. Engineers and soldiers prepared to prove that sometimes being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. Captain Jaiwan Park stood on the bridge of the Tiguk watching the stars through the massive viewing window. Earth's defense fleet had been quiet for months. No pirates, no asteroid threats, just peaceful patrols around humanity's home system. That peace was about to end. Captain, shouted Lieutenant Hana Kim from her communication station. I'm getting massive energy readings from the edge of the system. Jaiwan turned quickly. What kind of readings? Before Hana could answer, the space in front of them began to shimmer. Huge ships appeared out of nowhere like ghosts becoming solid, but these weren't human ships. They were nothing like anything humans had ever built. The first group of ships looked like they were made of living crystal. They sparkled and glowed with inner light. Each ship was perfectly smooth, with no visible weapons or engines. They moved through space like dancers, graceful and beautiful. The second group was completely different. These ships looked alive, but in a scary way. Their hulls pulsed like giant hearts. Strange tubes and organic-looking parts covered their surfaces. They moved through space like giant sea creatures swimming through water. Admiral Lee needs to see this, Jaiwan said. Hana, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Admiral Kyung-ho Lee appeared on the main screen within minutes. His face was serious but calm. Behind him, the Earth Command Center buzzed with activity. Officers ran between stations, and warning lights flashed red. Captain Park, what's your status? Admiral Lee asked. Sir, we have two different alien fleets in our system. They just appeared without warning. I count at least 50 ships from each group. Dr. Minjun Choi, Earth's top military expert, stepped into view behind the Admiral. Captain, are they showing any hostile behavior? Not yet, sir. They're just waiting, like they're studying us. Suddenly, Hana Station started beeping wildly. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's coming from both fleets at the same time. Put it through, Jaiwan ordered. The main screen changed. Two different aliens appeared side by side. The first looked like a being made of living light, constantly shifting and glowing. The second was more solid, but clearly not human. It had gray skin, multiple arms, and eyes that seemed to look in different directions at once. The light being spoke first. Its voice sounded like music mixed with the sound of breaking glass. Primitive humans, I am High Commander Tessara of the Vexta Empire. We have watched your species for many cycles. The gray alien spoke next. Its voice was deep and echoed strangely. I am Hive Admiral Zephyros of the Morden Collective. Your kind has spread beyond your birth world without permission. Admiral Lee stepped forward on his end of the transmission. I am Admiral Kyung-ho Lee, speaking for all of humanity. Welcome to our system. We hope this can be a peaceful meeting. Both aliens made sounds that might have been laughter, but not the kind that showed happiness. Peaceful Tessara's light form flickered. You think you have a choice in this matter? Your species is barely evolved. You have only just learned to leave your planet. Yet you act like you belong among the stars. Zephyros nodded with all four of his arms. The collective has studied your genetics. You are chaotic, uncontrolled. Your DNA changes randomly. You make decisions based on emotions instead of logic. This is dangerous. We have come to offer you guidance. Tizara continued, the Vexto I have mastered energy itself. We have evolved beyond the need for crude matter. Under our protection, your species can learn proper order. The Morton collective agrees, Zephyros added, but we believe biological perfection is the answer. We have removed all genetic flaws from our species. We can do the same for you. Admiral Lee frowned. What exactly are you offering? Surrender, both aliens said at the same time. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Captain Jiwon felt her crew tense up around her. On Earth she could see Admiral Lee's jaw tighten. Tizara continued speaking. Give up your weapons, stop your expansion into space, return to your home world. We will divide your colonies between our empires. The Vexta I will take the inner worlds, the Morton will take the outer colonies. You will be protected and guided. Zephyros added, your primitive technology will be replaced with proper systems. Your chaotic governments will be replaced with efficient control. Your children will be raised correctly, and if we refuse, Admiral Lee asked quietly. Both aliens glowed brighter. Their ships began moving closer to Earth. Then you will be corrected. Tizara said, the Vexta I do not enjoy destroying primitive species, but we will not allow chaos to spread through the galaxy. The collective will remove the genetic flaws that make your species dangerous. Zephyros added, this can be done peacefully, or it can be done by force. The transmission ended. The alien fleets moved into attack positions around Earth's solar system. The crystal ships formed perfect geometric patterns like deadly art in space. The bioships spread out like predators surrounding their prey. Captain Jiwon looked at her crew. Engineer Timon Ryu was already checking weapon systems. Navigator Sujin Yang was calculating escape routes. Communications Officer Hana Kim was sending emergency messages to all human colonies. Captain Hana said, I'm getting reports from our outer colonies. Similar fleets have appeared at Mars, Europa, and Titan. They're surrounding all our major settlements. On the main screen, Admiral Lee was talking quickly with his officer. Dr. Minsu Choi was pointing at star charts and shaking his head. The situation was clear. Humanity was completely surrounded. Admiral Jiwon said, what are your orders? Admiral Lee looked directly at her through the screen. His eyes were hard as steel. Captain Park, prepare your fleet for battle. Send a message to all human ships and colonies. Tell them this: humanity bows to no one. The bridge of the Teguk went quiet for a moment. Then slowly everyone began to smile. They were facing two advanced alien civilizations with technology far beyond their own. They were outnumbered at least 10 to 1. The smart thing would be to surrender. But humans had never been good at doing the smart thing. You heard the Admiral, Captain Jiwon announced to her crew. Battle stations. Let's show these aliens what happens when you call humans primitive. The warning sirens began to sound. Throughout the ship, red lights flashed as the crew prepared for war. Outside, the alien fleets waited, confident that the primitive humans would see reason and surrender. They were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. Never underestimate someone you've just insulted. High Commander Thisara, her own form flickering weakly in a damaged escape pod, sent one final transmission to the human fleet. This is impossible. High Admiral Zephyros watched the destruction of the Vexti fleet through his bioship's living sensors. The organic walls of his command chamber pulsed with agitation as the collective mind processed what they had witnessed. The energy beings had been completely destroyed by the primitive humans using simple matter-based weapons. This changes nothing, Zephyros announced to his collective. The Vexti failed because they underestimated primitive kinetic weapons, but we have seen their tactics. We will not repeat their mistakes. Bioanalyst Kithmara's voice echoed through the ship's neural network. Hive Admiral, the humans use chaotic strategies and unpredictable weapon combinations. Our bioships can adapt to any threat, but only if we can identify the pattern. Then we will force them to show us all their patterns at once, Zephyros decided. Launch full assault on all human colonies simultaneously. When they try to defend everything, we will see every tactic they possess. The Morden Collective had learned the wrong lesson from watching the Vexti defeat. They believed the crystal ships had failed because they hadn't adapted quickly enough, but the Morden biotechnology could evolve during battle, growing new defenses and weapons in real time. They were confident that their superior biological engineering would overcome human chaos. This confidence was about to be tested in the worst possible way. Captain Siohyan received the alert while commanding the Mars Defense Fleet from her flagship Red Planet Shield. The Morden bioships were moving toward all human colonies at once: Mars, Europa, Titan, the asteroid mining stations, even the small research outposts on Pluto. Communications Officer Boyoung Chai, get me General Nam on Luna Command. Siohyan ordered. Captain On, General. Wusung's voice came through clearly. Despite the distance, the Morden are forcing us to split our forces. They want to see all our capabilities at once, then let's give them a show they'll never forget, Siohyan replied. Are Dr. Yun's biomechanical countermeasures ready? All ships have been equipped with the new systems. The Morden are about to learn why humans never fight clean. Dr. Haywin, Yun had spent the last few hours studying fragments of Morden biotechnology that human ships had collected during the earlier skirmishes. What she discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The alien bioships were more advanced than anything humanity had ever created. But they had one critical weakness. The Morden have eliminated all randomness from their biological systems. Dr. Haywin explained to the gathered fleet commanders through the neural network. Their ships can adapt and evolve, but only in predictable ways based on their genetic programming. Major Kyle Suayem, commanding the ground forces on Mars, understood immediately. They've made themselves too perfect. No. Genetic variation means no ability to handle truly unexpected situations. Exactly, Dr. Haywin confirmed. So we're going to give them something their perfect genetics can't handle. controlled chaos in biological form. The weapons Dr. Haywin had developed looked like ordinary missiles, but they contained something much more dangerous than explosives. Each warhead held billions of synthetic viruses, designed not to destroy the bioships, but to confuse them. Captain Siohyan watched through her sensors as the Morden fleet approached Mars. The bioships were magnificent in their alien beauty, living vessels that pulsed with organic light, their hulls covered in structures that looked like a cross between coral and machinery. Each ship was perfectly adapted for space combat. Grown rather than built, target the lead bioship, Siohyan ordered. Fire. Confusion Protocol Alpha. Her ship launched what appeared to be a standard missile barrage. The Morden bio ships responded exactly as Dr. Haywin had predicted. Their living hulls began growing new defensive structures to intercept the missiles. Thick organic armor sprouted across their surfaces. Bioweapons emerged from hidden chambers to shoot down the incoming projectiles, but these weren't ordinary missiles. When they struck the bioship's defenses, they released clouds of synthetic viruses that Dr. Haywin had designed to be the exact opposite of Morden perfection. Instead of following predictable genetic patterns, these viruses contained deliberately random DNA sequences. What is happening to our vessels? High Admiral Zephyros demanded as his ships began to behave strangely. Bioanalyst Keith Mara's voice was filled with confusion. The humans have released some form of biological agent, but it's not trying to kill our ships, it's making them confused. The synthetic viruses weren't designed to destroy the Morden bioships. Instead, they introduced random genetic information into the ship's biological systems. The perfectly programmed organic vessels suddenly began growing structures that served no purpose. Some ships sprouted extra weapons that fired in random directions. Others developed new organs that interfered with their existing systems. Fascinating, Dr. Haywin observed from her laboratory on Europa. The bioships are trying to adapt to the random genetic information, but their programming can't handle true randomness. They're evolving in directions that make no sense. Lieutenant Dong Hyuk-seo, coordinating the attack from his position on the heavy cruiser Europa's Hope, watched as Morden bioships began to turn against each other. Some vessels had grown so many random structures that they could no longer tell friend from foe. Others had developed biological systems that contradicted their original programming. Deploy Evolution Accelerator Protocol, Siohyan ordered. This was Dr. Haywin's masterpiece of biological warfare. Instead of trying to destroy the Morden ships directly, she had created weapons that forced them to evolve beyond their creator's control. The bioships designed to adapt and change during battle suddenly began evolving at incredible speeds, but in completely random directions. Our vessels are no longer responding to collective commands, bioanalyst Chimera reported in panic. They have developed independent biological systems that ignore our neural network. High Admiral Zephyros watched in horror as his perfect bioships became chaotic organic monsters. Some had grown so many weapons that they couldn't move properly. Others had developed brain-like structures that thought independently of the collective mind. A few had even begun attacking other Modern ships, they're accelerated. Evolution having turned them into something completely alien. Impossible, Zephyros declared. Our biotechnology is perfect. It cannot be corrupted by primitive genetic manipulation. That's your problem. Captain Sioyon replied over the communication channel. You made your biology too perfect. You forgot that evolution works best when it's messy and unpredictable. Meanwhile, on the ground installations of Mars, Major Kyung-Soo M was watching the bioships that had managed to land begin to literally fall apart. The modern ground forces, also affected by the synthetic viruses, were experiencing rapid evolutionary changes that made them unable to function as a military unit. Colonel Minjai H. Wang Kyung-Soo called to his second in command, deploy the random mutation bombs. These weapons were Dr. Haywin's final gift to the Morden Collective. Instead of trying to kill the alien ground forces, they introduced so much random genetic material that the perfectly evolved Morden soldiers began changing faster than their minds could adapt. Some Morden troops grew extra limbs that they didn't know how to use. Others developed sensory organs that overwhelmed them with information. A few actually evolved beyond their original species entirely, becoming something that could no longer communicate with their collective mind. This is biological chaos, Hive Admiral Zephyrus protested as he watched his perfect army become a collection of confused mutants. Evolution should be controlled, directed, perfected. Evolution is never perfect, Dr. Haywin replied from her laboratory. That's what makes it so powerful. You tried to remove all the randomness. That makes life adaptable, so we gave you back some randomness with interest. The battle was turning into a rout. Morden bioships throughout the solar system were experiencing the same chaotic evolution, their collective mind designed to control perfectly programmed organisms couldn't handle creatures that were changing faster than they could be commanded. Engineer Chengmin Lim, working with Dr. Boyoung Chi on the research station orbiting Titan, activated the final phase of humanity's biological warfare campaign. They released clouds of what they called evolution bombs, weapons that didn't explode but instead created zones of accelerated genetic change. Any Morden bioship that entered these zones began evolving so rapidly that it literally outgrew its original design in minutes. Ships that had taken years to grow and perfect became twisted organic sculptures that could barely remember their original purpose. Our collective is fragmenting, bioanalyst Keith Mara screamed through the failing neural network. The bioships have evolved beyond our ability to communicate with them. Hive Admiral Zephyrus realized with growing horror that his perfect biological collective was coming apart. The ships he had thought were perfectly adapted for any threat were now evolving into forms he didn't recognize. Some had become so complex that they couldn't function. Others had simplified themselves to the point where they were barely more than organic debris. Retreat, Zephyrus ordered his remaining forces. All ships that can. General Wusung Nam stood in the lunar command center watching dozens of screens that showed the entire solar system. The underground facility had been built inside the moon itself, protected by kilometers of rock and the most advanced shields humanity could create. From here he could coordinate the defense of every human world and colony. Sir, called out communications officer. Nari Bay, all fleet commanders are standing by for orders. Wusung looked at the tactical display. The Vextai crystal ships had formed perfect triangular formations around Earth. The Morden bioships spread out in organic patterns near Mars and the outer colonies. Both alien fleets were exactly where human strategists wanted them. Dr. Choi, Wusung said into his communicator, "Are your special preparations ready?" On the screen, Dr. Minjun Choi nodded. From his position aboard the command ship Hanggang, all ships have been equipped with the new systems. The aliens are about to learn why humans never fight fair. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Instead of meeting both alien fleets in traditional space battles, humanity would use its greatest strength, the ability to think differently than anyone expected. Captain Jaehoon Kang commanded a squadron of ships that looked like floating junkyards. The Miner's Hope asteroid breaker and 12 other vessels had started life as industrial equipment, mining ships, cargo haulers, and construction platforms. To the aliens watching them, they looked like helpless civilian craft trying to run away. Engineering officer Yuna Han, "Are the modifications ready?" Jae-hoon asked. Yuna grinned from her station. "Captain, these mining ships now pack more firepower than our old battleships, plus some surprises the aliens definitely won't expect." The modifications were brilliant in their simplicity. The mining lasers had been converted into weapons that could cut through any known armor. The cargo bays held new kinds of missiles that didn't explode, they did something much worse. The industrial fabricators had been turned into factories that could build weapons during battle. But the real secret weapon was something no alien species had ever encountered. Commander Sungmin Oh sat in a special chamber aboard the flagship Taguk. His head was connected to a complex device that looked like a combination of computer circuits and living brain tissue. Around the human fleet, dozens of other commanders sat in identical chambers. Dr. Nari Bay, is the network ready? Sungmin asked. Dr. Nari checked her instruments. All neural connections are stable. The AI-human hybrid network is online and functioning perfectly. This was humanity's greatest innovation. Unlike the Vexatai, who existed as pure energy but thought in rigid patterns, or the Morden, who shared a collective mind but followed genetic programming, humans had created something new. Individual human creativity connected through artificial intelligence networks. Each human commander could think independently, come up with crazy ideas, and make split-second decisions. But they were all connected through quantum-linked AI systems that shared information instantly across the entire fleet. It was chaos and order working together, something neither alien species could understand. "All ships," General Wusung announced from Luna Command, "execute plan primitive." The human response began in ways that confused both alien fleets immediately. "Captain," Jahan's mining ship suddenly changed course and accelerated toward the Vexatai fleet at impossible speeds. The alien sensors showed the ships were just converted industrial equipment, not warships. High Commander Thaisara ordered her forces to ignore them and focus on the real military vessels. This was exactly what Captain Jihan hoped for. Yuna, activate the kinetic cannons, he ordered. The mining ship suddenly bristled with that fired chunks of solid metal at incredible speeds. Not energy beams or plasma bolts. Just big pieces of iron and steel moving at nearly the speed of light. The Vexta energy shields, designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks, were useless against simple matter moving very fast. The first crystal ship to get hit simply shattered the kinetic projectile, punched through its energy field like it wasn't there, and smashed the crystalline structure into a million glowing pieces. Impossible, Dicer repulsed and angry. Red light. Those are primitive kinetic weapons. No advanced species uses such crude technology. Meanwhile, near Mars, the Mordan bioships were facing their own surprise. Captain Hyun-woo Cha commanded the heavy cruiser Busan's Thunder, which appeared to be retreating from the alien fleet. Panic. The bioships gave chase, their living hulls pulsing with excitement as they prepared to capture human vessels. Engineering Officer Jimin Lee, deploy the viral countermeasures. Hyun-woo ordered. The Busan's Thunder suddenly released a cloud of microscopic machines that looked like space dust. The Mordan bioships flew right through the cloud, their living sensors detecting no threat from such tiny particles. But these weren't ordinary machines. Dr. Yoonji Song had designed them based on human computer viruses, but made them work on biological systems. When they attached to the bioships' living hulls, they began rewriting the ship's genetic programming. What is happening to our vessels, Hive? Admiral Zephyros demanded as his ships began to slow down and change course. Randomly, bioanalyst Kith Mira's voice was panicked. The humans have released some kind of synthetic virus. It's not biological, but it's affecting our ship's nervous systems. The bioships designed to adapt and evolve during battle began evolving in directions their crews couldn't control. Some grew extra weapons that fired randomly. Others developed new organs that served no purpose. The ships were still alive, but they were no longer following orders. Back in the Lunar Command Center, General Woo-sung watched both alien fleets struggle with tactics they had never encountered. The neural network was working perfectly, with human commanders sharing information and adapting their strategies in real time. Sir, reported Lieutenant Dong Hyuk. Seal, the Vexta are trying to adapt their energy shields to block kinetic weapons, and the Mordan are attempting to develop biological countermeasures to our synthetic viruses, added Communications Officer Nari, Bae Woo-sung. Smiled. Perfect. Signal all ships. Activate Phase 2. This was when humanity's real advantage became clear. Both alien species were trying to adapt to human tactics, but they were thinking like their own species. The Vexta were trying to find energy-based solutions to matter-based problems. The Mordan were trying to find biological solutions to synthetic problems, but humans didn't think one way. The neural network allowed them to combine thousands of different approaches instantly. Captain Sujin Yang's reconnaissance ships suddenly appeared throughout both alien fleets, moving too fast for the confused aliens to target. These small ships carried another human innovation, weapons that worked differently every time they fired. Target the lead Vexta command ship. Sujin ordered. Fire Solution Alpha. Her ship launched what looked like a Simple missile. But when it hit the crystal ships' shields, it didn't explode. Instead, it released a burst of electromagnetic energy that scrambled the ship's energy patterns. The beautiful crystal structure began to flicker and fade as its energy form became unstable. Now fire solution beta at the same target, Sujin continued. The second missile contained compressed matter that expanded rapidly when it hit the weakened energy field. The crystal ship, already struggling to maintain its energy form, couldn't handle solid matter appearing inside its structure. It collapsed into a pile of glowing dust. Throughout the battle, human ships used different combinations of kinetic weapons, electromagnetic pulses, synthetic viruses, matter compression devices, and weapons that hadn't existed an hour before. The industrial fabricators aboard the converted mining ships were building new kinds of ammunition in real time, based on what the neural network learned about alien defenses. This is chaos, High Commander Thisara declared as another of her ships fell to weapons she didn't understand. Agreed, Hive Admiral Zephyros added as his bioships continued to malfunction. These humans fight with no order, no predictable patterns. How can we defend against tactics that change every moment? In the Luna Command Center, General Wusong heard these alien communications and laughed. That's exactly the point. We're not fighting like an advanced civilization. We're fighting like humans. The first phase of the battle was almost over. The alien fleets that had arrived to easily crush a primitive species were now scattered and confused. Their advanced technology was useless against weapons and tactics they had never imagined. But the real test was still coming. Both alien species were about to learn that when humans got serious about fighting, being called primitive was just the beginning of their problems.